beside the trail.
It's streaming on the PCBA Facebook page. Okay, we're good. We'll catch Kirsten after.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna spend 20-30 minutes going through a presentation, but I want to start by sharing the presentation. While it's specific to what we're doing in Ankeny, it's a formula that applies to any city, right? So I'm not a consultant that has a presentation that's going to say, you know, I recommend Prairie City do this or that. I'm going to share the studies, the reports, the planning, the projects we've done in Ankeny, knowing, and I hope everyone's takeaway is, it's scalable and it's all applicable. We've paid for different studies from outside consultants from around the country to help us learn some things about our community, and the recommendations in that report apply to any city, and really in any city in the state of Iowa. So that report is available on our website. You can take it. I tell people all the time, plagiarize it, take things out of it, change your name from Ankeny to Prairie City, and use it because it's all applicable. So I don't want you to think I'm just here talking about Ankeny. While I am, but know that the recommendations and things that we learned really apply ubiquitously across the state of Iowa. So that's my background. Kind of before I jump into it, we as a community had the High Trestle Trail running through the community. We had heard anecdotally people would maybe come to Ankeny, stay in a hotel, go on the trail. Like we just heard all this, right? And you know, I guess I'm the one that speaks to communities like I was mentioned in the introduction, because as a community we've taken it to really study and evaluate who's on our trail, where are they coming from, what can we do to get more people to come, what can we do to get people to stay longer. And what I share with people is we have, as a region, arguably, maybe not even arguably, the best trail network in the entire United States. And people do not realize that because we take it for granted. But you get anyone to come to Central Iowa region and bike, they are blown away by how great our trail network is. And we as a state have really failed to capitalize on that in many ways, right? So usually what happens is, and I'm sure the case here in Prairie City, which I got to commend everyone in the room for looking beyond the completion of the trail. But how it's always been done is, you work your butt off, you build the trail, sweet, we're done. We did it. It's over. The concrete's in the ground. And that's how it's always been done. And what we decided to do is look at, okay, we as a community have invested millions of dollars in trails. How do we leverage that for economic development purposes, bring more people to our community, bring more visitors, and now, because businesses are being driven by workforce shortages, how do we leverage our trail to get more people to move and consider Ankeny? Because if we can continue to attract people, we're going to continue to attract the people that want to, attract the businesses that want to employ the people that are moving to Ankeny, right? So you can frame a trail as a park initiative, as a recreation initiative. You can frame a trail pretty much any way you need to frame it. Or it can be an economic development, community beautification. I mean, the trail can be many things to a lot of people. In our community, what I'm going to be sharing that we're working on, I share it as it's a park, it's an amenity for people who live in Ankeny to increase the quality of life for people who are already here. No one can argue with that. But I can also share it as it's an opportunity to bring tourist dollars to our community. It's an opportunity to expose people to Ankeny who maybe wouldn't otherwise come to Ankeny, and maybe they'll stay in Ankeny forever, right? So you can frame your trail any way you want. And we'll get in, when I'm done with my presentation, some observations I have with your trail network and what opportunities I see. I am not a designated expert, but we've done enough as a community. I've kind of fallen into that role, but talk to other people too. I'll share what I know. So like I said, we'd heard people were coming. We saw people, we'd see out-of-state plates. So we dove into it and hired a group to help us identify who's using our trail, where are they coming from, how much money they're spending. And to my knowledge, it's the only study of its kind in Central Iowa, or in Iowa. Kind of a unique study in general. And we asked them, help us determine if there's really an opportunity here. And if there is, what are your recommendations as a community? And that's what really applies to any city. So we got some psychographic data that shows, this isn't meant to be pretty, but every census block group's a different demographic makeup of a consumer in that area, because people are coming from central Iowa. We did trail surveys. I highly recommend them. Go out, spend a day, do it kind of statistically significant if you can. Learn who's biking through. Yeah, you'll hear stories. You'll have no idea. And with eventually a connection to Red Rock at the other end and the metro, I'll sidetrack to a quick story. So we struggled to get support and funding to do this stuff because there are people that just didn't see the value, they didn't make the connection, right? So one weekend we were able to attract a regional bicycle ride from 5 states. We actively kind of sought them. And the beauty was it was a tandem ride, right? So everyone was on a 2-seater bike or a 3-seater bike, right? And I tracked how many hotel rooms were booked in Ankeny by this group and these people from all these states. And I was able to quantify the hotel-motel tax revenue that was coming back to the city, which was beneficial to the council to see, like, there's really direct financial benefit to the city based on our trips. But the best benefit was that weekend, everyone knew we were doing that we were hosting this ride. That weekend, you knew who was from out of town because it was a tandem, right? So like everywhere you went through town that weekend, you could tell who was a local and who was not a local. So it was like, wow, there are a lot of extra people doing it on the trail. So that was helpful. So learning who your trail users are, definitely beneficial. We did it through surveys. They don't have to be overly complicated. We also acquired cell phone data. We drew a polygon of the High Trestle Bridge, and we looked at a 12-month period and looked at location data on cell phones. Now, granted, not everyone has it on. Kids don't have phones. We had about 2,500 hits mapped here to show where people were coming from. 2,500 hits out of 250,000 people that step foot on the bridge. It's a pretty good number to understand. The data shows where people's phone most rests at night, so it's not their billing address, because with Iowa State, we didn't want that to change things. So we see, obviously, people are coming to the High Trestle Bridge from all over. You can do the same at Red Rock campgrounds. Like I know in Ankeny, Saylorville, there's 40,000 people a year that sleep out at Saylorville, and they're coming from all over. And they usually have bikes or do something with the water. There's an opportunity, so I refer to the bridge. I mean, there's other things to look at in your region. So we determined there are a lot of people coming from the Midwest, a lot of people coming from around the country to step foot on the bridge. The bridge isn't in Ankeny. So it's clear, how do we get these people from the bridge to come to Ankeny? Because we want to be a destination for them. No different than your situation, just different amenity. So we found 18% of the people that step foot on the bridge were not from the state of Iowa. You extrapolate that out with 250,000 people on the bridge a year, that's probably 40,000 people a year from out of state that are on the bridge. The consultants also helped us with identifying markets that if you're gonna advertise, do any marketing in regions, there's communities that have higher percentage of their per capita income spent on outdoor recreation. So we got some really kind of specific data. So that was kind of from the generic data standpoint. And then the intercept surveys were super helpful. We interviewed 200 people on a crappy 3-day period in September. The weather was lousy, the consultants were down, they had to go through with it. We talked to about 200 people. 10% of them that we talked to on the trail stayed in a hotel overnight, and 90% of those said the trail was the primary reason they were visiting the area, right? So it began to prove, like, there's a real market here. And even though I'm specifically talking about the High Trestle Trail and the bridge, like, as the region's all connected, these people aren't just staying there. They're going to different places, checking out different things. If they stayed overnight in a hotel, they spent an average of $242 a day. They spent $26 per trip. Obviously, that was before inflation, so that'd be $100. No, $30 or $40 a day. It'd be almost double because it feels like that with the family budget anyway. Most people are getting to the trail by vehicle. These folks are high income earners. They like to go long distances, and they're coming from 5% of the people we talked to are outside of Iowa. So the bridge data was 18%. Point is, we're still seeing a lot of people from Iowa staying in hotels. They're from Iowa, they're staying in a hotel in central Iowa to visit the trails, right? So this confirmed a lot of things for us. You know, with the income thing, in other conversations I've had, bar restaurant owners love the bicycle crowd because they are constant all day. There's not like, they don't all show up at noon, they don't all show up at 6, they don't overdrink until 2. I mean, they can, of course, but it's like, it's a steady stream of customers who are responsible from 9 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, all day long, busy versus, 2 peaks. People love that. So the recommendations, once they help us determine, yes, there's a market, and I think you could do your own research and studies based on the amenities at either end coming that would pull from into your community, that it's similar demographics, and people are traveling. So the recommendations, obvious stuff, marketing and branding, right? And I know you're opening your trail tomorrow, but there's a huge opportunity to let people know where things are. Because if I am coming, you have to assume there's going to be people that know where everything is, right? They're going to know, they're going to be familiar with the area. But you're going to have people, especially, you connect to Red Rock, especially connect to the greater metro. You're going to hit a ton of people that have no idea that Goldie's is a block and a half that way. No clue. So you'll have those people, but you're also going to have people who are only coming here from either end because they've heard about Goldie's, right? So the low-hanging fruit is letting people know where things are and how to get there. And that's simple stuff. But come up with a nice plan on signage, make it uniform, kind of theme it to your community. Maybe it's Buffalo, whatever it may be. But where businesses are, all the way from gas stations, because if I'm riding from Red Rock or Monroe, I don't know that I can go 2 more blocks and get Casey's because I need water, or I want a slice of meat, whatever, right? Signage. So kind of branded marketing stuff, something that's kind of specific to your community to know this is Prairie City and this is their trail network. Identifying and trying to get key connections made. And that's looking at your trail that you have and making sure that the places you want people to get to, like if your trail on the south side of the highway, if that's a highway, you'd want to pull them in town. You guys are lucky beyond, I mean, most communities would dream to have a trail just right through the town square, right? So, but there probably are some connections where there's maybe a park, or whether it's the businesses on the south side of the main thoroughfare, you want to get people over there. So make sure, you're trying to make those key connections to make it easy for people. In our case, our AMP was our trailhead, trying to get people to come there and use it as a trailhead. That could be just as easily as your town square if you have a park on the trail, but making it kind of fun and cool. And the recommendations as shown here aren't over the top expensive. We'll get into that stuff later, but simple stuff. Hammock poles. Some bikers a lot of times will carry a hammock and hang it up, or outdoor chest beams. Again, all things for residents to increase the quality of life for people who live here. It's also an added bonus as it's attractive to people who are coming. Murals, art, this is kind of some recommendations on how to do downtown stuff with different murals, kind of making sure your downtown is sandwich board signs. So if a biker's going this way and they look, they can see the business name on the signage. Different kind of unique art kind of things to make it a fun, cool trailhead, kind of like come here as a bicyclist. Another recommendation was your trail corridor, looking at where the trail is in Prairie City, and making sure that any new development or things on that trail, and keep the trail in mind. You're fortunate that there's benefits and downsides to having an old rail line, right? house, you got a fence, and you back up to it. You have an opportunity without all that new development already backing up to it. New development can occur like facing the trail, right? Whether it's housing or commercial or what. So making sure that you're planning future development in relationship to the trail. Most communities don't do that. Looking at major kind of redevelopment opportunities and using the trail as a catalyst, whether it's for businesses downtown or new commercial buildings or housing. Like we learned, and I've heard from major Des Moines developers, people like to go long distance. Getting on a trail, living on a trail, townhome, whatever, and being able to get off work and hop on your bike and go 20 miles without hitting a traffic signal every 8 blocks is attractive to a lot of people. Protecting the trail experience. It goes back to looking at the corridor and making sure new development interacts with the trail, but also making sure that existing development, what people see. I mean, a lot of people, their only impression of Prairie City is going to be from the trail. So whether there's nuisance properties that need cleaned up or different things like that, you can make a first impression and make it stick if you pay attention to the trail experience. That being said, it doesn't need to be perfectly curated, right? Like you're biking through central Iowa. It's awesome that you go right by the grain elevator because people want to see that. So there's a balance, right? We have it in Ankeny where the trail goes through old industrial areas and it goes through new residential and old residential and then our historic downtown, which most people don't even know we have a historic downtown in Ankeny, right? And then that's appealing to a lot of people. This is what I'm going to spend some time on because it's simple, it's kind of low-hanging fruit, makes a big impact, and we've taken one more step and studied this a little more. But activating different places, like kind of creating experiences or things for people to do while they're here, right? Instead of just blowing through town to get to the wildlife refuge, have something cool to get them to stop and get off their bike and look and hang out. See, like I said, it's not all complicated stuff. It's not all expensive stuff. You just have to be intentional about it, right? Like here, this example, in our report, it's a mural on the side of a building. And everyone who walks by is going to stop and take that picture. And you know what they're going to do with that picture? They're going to put it on Instagram and Facebook, and they're going to tell all their friends from wherever they are that they're in Prairie City, Iowa. And I would argue this kind of thing, having something like an attraction, something that's unique and different like that, will go farther than any marketing you could ever pay for, right? And that's a simple, intentional mural. That's not just something you blow by and be like, well, that's cool, but it's like, I got to stop and do that. Or I'm going to go to Prairie City and get that picture. Because there are people that plan their day around what they can post on. So, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds, it's like you plan your day and you go on certain vacations because they want that picture to post to show all their friends. And it doesn't make sense to me, but it's real. Our consultants called it Instagrammable places, like places intentionally designed for people to do something cool on social media with, and it gets your community all the free marketing. Because if they're from Northeast Iowa and they're camping at Red Rock and they're biking to Prairie City or whatever for the day, they're going to be posting pictures. You want them to post pictures along the way.
So just a note on that, there have been a couple of social influencers already that have been on the trail, and it's exactly to that point. Within the articles that they did, you've got a picture by the Historical Society one here, a picture in front of the Prairie City mural on the south side.
Yeah.
So, people have stopped and they have used those as an opportunity to just pose and say, hey, look where I am. And so, that is there. But yeah, if you could capitalize on it even further.
For
the
sure.
The big metal buffalo,
for sure.
You can get a picture by that thing. And
Absolutely. And that's how people plan their future trips, by what they're seeing on social media. They're not calling the Convention Visitors Bureau asking for a packet of information on what to do. They're like influenced by other people and their social media. So not overly complicated stuff. Some other recommendations, we're making sure if they have any retail type businesses, they do shipping, making sure that hours of bars and restaurants are in line with when bicyclists tend to, want to eat breakfast or have drinks or whatever it may be. One of the other recommendations was creating a bike committee. Like, it sounds like there's some representatives of different friends of the trail and stuff, like groups like that are paying attention to all this stuff and really being intentional about what the city's doing, whether it's infrastructure projects or permitting or whatever. We're trying to raise money locally for different things that are going to enhance that trail experience, because I mean, getting the trail done is a huge, huge accomplishment, and you guys have done a great job with that. But for just a little bit more effort, more intentional effort, and just a little bit more money, you can make your stretch that you control into something that, like, people stop, they stay longer, they make it a destination. There's a couple things to do, so I'm going to plan my day where I'm going to eat lunch here versus just blow through and get to the next town, right? So on the topic of activating art stops and stop different places in your community, we kind of latched onto that one as a community and did a bunch of surveys for our residents on what kind of things we can do as a community that fit who we are, and also add some public art and cool things along the trail. So I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff. They're, like I said, they're all scalable. Some are over the top, some are just ridiculous, some are pretty fun that we're implementing. So kind of purpose here is leveraging existing investments to attract more people. One of the first surveys we did, there are a series of questions. I can share all the data if you're interested. It's not all in here, but we asked people, what's their purpose of engaging in the trail, right? And for some people, it's different for everyone. I would have bet my money it was all about socializing and eating and drinking with friends, because there's a lot of that, right? It's like rag culture oftentimes. But the number one reason is exercise. Number two was this concept of escaping to nature, right? Kind of surprised me. Number three was the social aspect. And then it goes down from there. I can't remember what the other social, I can't read, but there was, connection to nature, solitary escape from the city, exercise, playfulness, social activity, efficient way to travel. But the number one was exercise. Number two is this escape to nature. So we looked at different areas in our community. So this is kind of putting into practice some of the recommendations I already went through. Where the city owned land, where the city had some projects already planned, where are some opportunities to kind of focus on where to do something cool. So we identified these areas. We have 4.1 miles of trail, high trestle trail in the city limits. We have 70 or 80 miles of trails and wide sidewalks. The high trestle trail's the most traveled. So we identified those areas and we put a call out to artists around the country, and we gave them the feedback on who we are as a community and hometown feel and our growth, what's important, exercise, escape to nature, and we got like 45 concepts for these locations based on survey results on who we are as a community, and they were some of them way over the top, like, I don't know, like that just does not look like Ankeny to me, right? I've lived there a couple of years, and it's like, that doesn't fit. This would be a maintenance nightmare. So it's a restroom, his and hers restroom, but made to look like an old house bathroom on the outside, so it's true public art. This was the overpass over Ora Labor someone came up with. This one was super cool. It's kind of sparkly LED lights made to look like constellations, Big Dipper, all that, but it didn't do anything during the day, right? It just looked like clutter during the day. So these all got cut. So we had a steering committee kind of pick, and then we did a survey and ranked them in the community. Had like 2,000 people involved in this. The number one recommendation, and these are things that we didn't dream up. Artists, this is a Canadian group. Think of Tom Hanks in the movie Big, right? So each of these lines makes a different noise, like a piano key, and they light up at night, and it's banked. So that's just part of the trail, so you can just kind of go through it. Or if you're not on a bike, you can play on it, so it's a park, but it's also something cool and different for bicyclists. It was the number one rated It's also the most expensive, right? It's like $600,000. It's always the case, right? So it's like that's a ways out. Here it is at night, super cool. People would love it, but you know, balancing priorities as a city. You know, it's like you hire more firemen, police officers that you need, or we're gonna get bumped for years. This was an underpass that we built. The artist concept was, community aspirations, kind of playing the hometown field, going to football games, whatever, trying to get people's goals and dreams. So we're really trying to tie it locally while adding more beautiful tiles to our underpass. So the pink's like, short term, long term's blue, whatever. People love these, and it came from the whole escape to nature concept. Wild native prairie animals, 410 steel, like kind of get big, you climb on them, play on them, they disappear at certain angles, and small and big. This is one where, it's the High Trestle Trail, and it's a quintessential Iowa trestle bridge, but it has a staircase in it, so you're looking down and you bike under it, kind of a cool feature. This is one that's actually under construction now. The others are kind of on the drawing board. And this is it's instead of a standard shelter with a picnic table, it's kind of like on the northwest side. So if you're coming from the north, it's kind of welcome to Ankeny. It's a quintessential kind of Iowa farmhouse front porch with porch swings. There's a restroom tucked behind it. So we needed a restroom, we needed a shelter. We could have done it the standard way. We got some grant money and made something super cool, right? Has this old, on the right here, there's a gramophone, an old horn from like an old record player that you like slip your cell phone into, and it projects music a little bit. So you can sit there and swing, listen to your music. If you live in the area, you can come out and watch people bike by. If you're biking, you can take a break. Maybe some of you have seen the new overpass over Orlabor. That has some historical context. The design of these abutments are the same design of what's on the west side of the High Trestle Bridge, the lookout tower. The lookout tower on the west side of the High Trestle Bridge is built on the abutments from the original High Trestle Trail in 1912, and they look just like that. So when all the weeds are gone, you can see them. Can't see them now, so it's kind of tying the two together. But I share this because we were having conversations about this whole plan. At the same time, our engineers and everyone was working on an overpass because we needed an overpass, right? So the recommendation was, this is the one. It's economical, it's functional, gets the job done. Looks nice, arguably, I don't think anyone would complain, right? And the council was like, let's, we're having these conversations about bike tourism, let's spend a little bit more money and then do something unique, and we ended up with this. So, point is if there's things that you as a community or the city, state, whatever may be already doing, enhance it a little bit more and make it unique. But these conversations are having a real impact in our community, just like I hope they have in your community. Our last thing I want to touch on is this High Trestle Trail Experience Park. We're looking at, this is uptown Ankeny. Here's our trail through the High Trestle Trail. You can see from here to here, there's an underpass. This is Ankeny Boulevard. That is 14 acres of, that I call it wasted opportunity, right? Like it's weeds, it's crushed river rock, it's right square in the middle of the city, and without these conversations, pretty sure that's how it looked forever, right? But, we start talking about how do we get more of these people to come to our community, and we've identified this as really what could be a bookend to the High Trestle Bridge, and making it a cool experience park. So think of like the sculpture park downtown, but different things you actually do, not just look at, right? And it's easy in our community. It's a park. It's centrally located. It's a park in the middle of the community. Anyone who doesn't even own a bike can come enjoy it. But it will also be something super cool that people are going to remember when they come through town, or they'll come to Ankeny specifically to experience it. So this is on the higher end of the spectrum or aspiration list. But we've got funding, we got grants out there to begin creating this park with a series of amenities. We'll have probably 10 or 12 of them. One of them is kind of cool. I call it these bumps. It's just asphalt, just hills like this, but it's designed specifically to, like, if you buy, I mean, trails are flat as a pancake. I mean, the whole Ankeny's as flat as this floor. So it adds some topography. So if you're biking, you can bike over, it'd be kind of fun. Kind of like when you're in your car and you're like on a road, feels good. But it's also, I call it a stroller coaster, because if you were like pushing a stroller, just, you know, your kid would just be loving it. So like not overly expensive stuff, but just different and memorable. Here's kind of some renderings of what it would look like. We got like a natural playscape and some, again, going back to our survey results, the escape to nature lights that look like dandelions, native prairie plants. We're also planning a glow-in-the-dark trail. Not overly expensive, super unique. There's one in Benton right now. People will come from, in my world, it's like, are people going to get in the West Des Moines going to get in their car and come to Ankeny, right? Like, that's how I oftentimes look at things. They'll come for that, right? But once you do it once, you know, first one in the metro to do that, I don't go out and build one. I know small communities can get things done so much faster in bigger cities, but like something like that will draw people, right? And it's not too expensive. I think it's like 40,000 or 60,000. Here it is in the winter. So that's real quick, 30 minutes, kind of everything that we've done. But like I said, the recommendations, the concepts, the overall just kind of intention is to get you thinking about things that are specific to your community on a big scale, on a small scale. But I think it starts with, you've got the hardest lift is done, and that's getting the trail. And then it starts with identifying the opportunities. Where could we do things? Get some feedback on what kind of things are people interested in, and then start, you know, working with the city or chasing grants or fundraising, whatever, to make it happen. Because, you know, even Bondurant, they've done some cool stuff around their trails, and they're planning to do more. You know, the other thing I was going to suggest is when I looked at a map. Oh, my last slide, I forgot about it. Really trying to make just fun stuff everywhere, right? Like not cluttering your community, but like, you know, you think of like RAGBRAI, like the stories that come out of RAGBRAI. It's like the weird stuff, right? Like, I mean, as residents, it's gotta be tasteful enough where you can live with it, but at the same time, you know, the more different or unique or playing on, you know, Iowa heritage or whatever, the more people are gonna come check it out, right? And it doesn't have to be expensive. So we have this kind of theme through ours, is fun everywhere. This is insect habitats that are just kind of designed like little cool houses and fairy houses and stuff through our parks. This is a post and netting coming down from the air. You can climb up it. It looks like a tree canopy. But, you know, kids can climb on it, adults can lay on it like a hammock. You know, have a concrete pad with power for a food truck on occasions. These are kind of things kids can play in that are made out of willows, rotating art. It's kind of fun, unique kind of stuff everywhere is what people seem to like. People just crave kind of unique, authentic places and experiences, and the trail lends itself easily to that. It adds some character to your community at the same time to bring people in. But what I was going to say is, looking at the map, like you guys, this community is perfectly positioned. Because bikers, are there many, I assume you guys bike, are there many people that bike regularly on trails? Yeah, it's and yeah, you know this with the trail you're involved with. I always just say that because I always screw up the name, so I just, the one you're involved with, we all know the name.
The chocolate.
Yeah. But it's ideal, like the distance from Red Rock, the fact that you have Red Rock at one end, which already lends itself to outdoor enthusiasts who show up with a camper behind an F-150 with 4 bikes on the back, and they're coming from somewhere in the state of Iowa or Illinois or Missouri or whatever. You've got that at one end. You've got the Des Moines Metro at the other end. And like every 12, 15 miles, there's a city. And that's like an ideal world for bike tourism, because that's about the time of, you need a break, you want a break, you need something to eat, you want something to drink, whatever. Like in Ankeny, we have, you go from Ankeny, 15 miles up to Slater, and you go like 6 miles to Madrid, and you go a few more miles, you go to Woodward. And it's like perfect spacing, and there are businesses in those communities that would not exist if it were not for the trail. Hands down. And the spacing of your communities is ideal. And the fact that you've got the National Wildlife Refuge here, which the feds or someone needs to do a better job getting more people to go there, right? I mean, I love going there because, we go there quite a lot, but it's been tough to get more people. Like, I'm always surprised that there's not a lot of people there.
Nothing's changed there for years.
Yeah.
You go out and you see the same old weeds every year.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that, but
It's a gem too. It's a gem. I tell everyone I know about it, because it's like, kids love it, I love it. Boys over there, I got the place to
changed.
myself. What's that?
never,
Oh.
yeah.
It's rubber. There's no hair left on the
But there are people that go there twice a day, every day,
Oh.
for
Okay.
real,
Nice.
Okay.
and take pictures,
They'll
and
go
post
for
pictures,
sunsets and sunrises.
every day.
Huh.
I take my grandkids out there every year, but I mean, I wish they had more stuff for them to do, 'cause they're getting bored now.
Yeah,
there's
as
nothing
they get
new
older.
for them.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been there. So the fact that you've got Red Rock at one end, Des Moines Metro at the other, and you've got perfect spacing between all these, those can drag out for a long time if you're not vocal and really pushing to make them happen. So the sooner you have those, I need to tell you this, it's not rocket science. The sooner you have those connections, the better. In the meantime, you got some time to plan. But making those connections happen is really keeping the pressure on the people with the purse strings to make sure that sorry if there's any elected officials in the room, but the purse strings to make that happen, keeping the pressure, talking about the importance of it, sharing this kind of stuff, whatever. Because there's a program right now, Destination Iowa, it's funding a lot of regional trails. Like, I feel as a state, like we're never gonna have the outdoor amenities of Colorado or Arizona or California, but we can have the best statewide trail network with some right connections, right? And that's one. Next year they're building the connection from the Raccoon River Trail to the High Trestle Trail. It's like 4 miles. That's going to be an absolute game changer for the whole central, the immediate metro, because now it's a 120-mile loop. And then you get into like Airbnb opportunities, right? Where people are going to stay overnight. They're going to wake up in Waukee, do 50 miles, stay overnight, eat, drink, whatever. So, all right, I've talked enough. So keep those conversations going with the right people, because if not, it takes a while. And I don't know exactly where they are with the fundraising on both of those, but when I mentioned Red Rock, that would tie you right into Pella, right? I mean,
Yeah, so that's a little the difficulty in both ways. So from Jasper County standpoint, the Jasper County Conservation is actively working to get to Mitchellville, or at least to the Polk County line. And same way, the problem here is that you get to the edge of Monroe and we're done. So the trail could go to Monroe, the basically Jersey Freeze, and then it turns into Marion County, and now we're into a different entity. The Army Corps of Engineers has committed to get the trail to Highway 14.
okay.
So that has already been committed, that's already in the works. Like I said, we're aggressively working to get to Mitchellville. The 14 Marion County section is probably the uncertain or the unknown. A little bit of working with the Marion County conservation teams, trying to get funding and things like that. But that's probably, of all the planning, that's the 3 or 4 miles that's probably the most uncertain.
Oh, and it's only 3 or 4 miles, right?
I would think if people's traveling that on a bicycle, they'd be interested in getting a trail through there, because you got 5E coming up and bouncing up and down the highway all day long.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, how many bicycle riders you went out there slowing their semis up?
Yeah, right.
You know, there'll be a lot of conversation over that, you know?
Yeah, and sharing, sharing data, like having those conversations, appointing someone from your community to meet with the supervisors in Marion County, keeping it front and center, because it's gonna make a difference for their county just like it is the counties along the way. Like I think of Pella, I kept referencing, Red Rock. I just did the Pella at the end, like how many miles would the trail be if I'm in Ankeny and I wanna bike to Pella on this conceived trail, is it 60-ish? I mean, that connection, like even Pella, like that connection, that is, people in Iowa are so used to biking and staying overnight, like they do it on Ragbri all the time. Like for someone in Des Moines Metro to be able to get on their bike, stay at the Hotel Amsterdam and hang out in Pella or go to Smash Park or whatever, and then on Saturday, and then bike home on Sunday, and they're driving right through your community. And they're gonna do it. Like you'll be surprised at the number of people that will do it.
It's too bad they ever eliminated the railroad grade going down through Ollie on into Pella. Yeah, that's too bad they did away with that. But this bike trail went right into Pella, and the Marion County wasn't interested in bicycle trails, so they let a lot of the farmers have it back. And once it's gone, you never get it back from a farmer.
Yeah, that can be tough. But
Yeah, and I do know, so I guess just for the group here, the other resource that's out there, so in addition, I will send this out to whoever wants the presentation and whatever data. If you look up the Great Rail Trail, it's the Washington to Washington Trail, basically starts in Washington DC, goes out to Washington State. They've done a lot of surveys along the active parts of those trails, collecting data exactly like you show. One of the key takeaways, like you mentioned, going from Ankeny to Pella, today people go from Ankeny to Pella. The difference is if you get in your car and go Ankeny to Pella, I'm not going to stay, because I'm going to turn back around and go back. But if I get on a bike, I gotta stop for breakfast, I'm gonna stop for lunch, for supper, I'm gonna stop for drinks, so inherently it creates those 10 to 12 mile stopping points the whole distance to Pella. You're gonna stay over in here and come back and do it all again. So it's, he talked the $242, $26 amount that they're spending, those are real numbers. And if you look at what the Great Trail put together, look at what Ankeny put together, the message is all the same. They are spending lots of money and they're stopping way more frequently than if you were in a car.
the 26, so there's also, so that 26 is for someone who's not staying overnight anywhere, right? So that 242 isn't the hotel cost, it's what they're spending per day. And I think we can all agree that when you're on your vacation, you're staying in a hotel, you're in vacation mode. So you're spending a lot more than you would on a typical day. If I'm just biking somewhere out and back in a day, I'll spend 26. But if I'm staying overnight biking out and back, I might spend 76, right? So the number's even greater. So
I had a friend who started are people familiar with the Lanesboro Trail of Minnesota?
Yeah, the Root River Trail.
Yeah, there's a pie shop.
Yeah.
That's there. That's kind of famous. And
Super famous.
He started that was his.
Yeah.
And it's seasonal, and he was able to support his family on that pie shop, just on the time that you could.
Minnesota, open 5 months a year.
Exactly. So you're going to have a lot of businesses that will pop up that you aren't even expecting.
Right.
So if you like pie, like to bake pie,
Right.
you might want to bake pie.
Yeah, absolutely. We're Dutch letters, right?
Yeah, exactly. Were there any questions, comments, or anything for Derek or just for the group?
I do know from sitting in the trail meetings that Polk County is ready for us to get to Mitchellville.
Yeah.
They're ready, they've got funds, they've got plans, and they're on board totally, so.
It's it sounds like that might be the quickest connection is to the
That'll
west.
happen before Pella.
Yeah.
Problem. I think the biggest problem they got now is getting from Altoona to Mitchellville. I think the last I heard, they're trying to get enough money to actually tie into Thomas Mitchell Park.
They're
Is
doing
what
that
I heard.
first.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
doing that
And then,
first.
and then somehow go on up from there, but I'm not.
There's a section of rail bed that they haven't abandoned. Like
Yeah.
4 miles, something like that. And so they're figuring out how to get to Mitchellville.
And probably eventually they will give that up, but is it gonna be a year from now or 5 years from now? You know, that's the problem.
If you know anyone at the railroad,
Mhm.
make that call.
Yeah.
Someone there was holding us up.
Yeah, yeah. Someone just has to stay on it, right? I mean, it's got like I always joke if I ever write a book, it would be titled "Every Good Project Has a Champion," right? Like, if there's no one in your community owning this stuff, probably not. It's going to be slow. Just like that trail connection, if there's no one at the county like pestering the railroad, it's going to take that much longer. Like if there's not someone championing whatever cause it is you're after, it's a slow process. But it'll happen. There's there's funding, there's more funding available. I'm trying to get the state to commission a statewide study on bicycle impact, tourism impacts, because or Iowa State or someone, if someone were to do that, if someone did a statewide study and said, you know, the economic impact of bike tourism in the state of Iowa, it could easily be over half of it could easily be 400 or 500 million. Easy. Like some states, Oregon's like already over $1 billion. Like Iowa's could be, when you add every bike shop and bike purchase, you add it all up, it could easily top 600, 800 million. But you have that data in this on a statewide scale. Then you go to Marion County, it's like, man, we got to get in on this. So like that kind of data, hopefully we can get out there to help make the case to other counties.
I was reading a study about Wyoming and snowmobilers, and back in the year 2000, you know, the 2000 in general, snowmobilers left $8 million in the 2 counties right there close to Laramie, Wyoming. I mean, $8 million in a small,
Right,
you know, that's,
right.
but they show up there like bicycles. They don't camp, they don't carry their own food, they don't eat it, everything, they've got to buy everything.
Right, that's funny, that's
Okay.
funny. You know, you also have, with the communities spaced out, like I know in Chautauqua Valley Trail, they have Jubilee Days or whatever, like coordinating with other communities, with Prairie City, Monroe, and Mitchellville, and having like this Saturday, you need to have thousands of people come out and back for the day, and there's whatever, it's community-wide event or whatever.
What was the name, the event that goes from Baxter into?
Hillbilly bike ride?
Yeah.
That's what they changed it
That was
to.
the last one, and there was somebody before.
Yeah.
He does that hill, or that ride down there in Missouri on the Katy one.
Oh,
And
Jamboree.
he came, yeah, I think they called it the same thing up here, didn't they? Or-
Yep, yep.
Yeah, first year was
Yes.
Waukee to Jefferson.
Yeah, and then he came over this way,
Yep.
and, I think he found out it was too much work for him being out of state.
Yeah.
And he kinda left, and
There's a
then,
bunch of people on that first year though.
Yeah.
To Bondurant from Baxter.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Can you talk about like the impact this will have on like this business, for example? I mean, how can a business think about catering to bicyclists?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think we don't have any idea the impact this is gonna have.
Right.
We don't even.
Right.
I'll tell you one big thing they need to do is get bicycle racks where you can lock them up, and most of these
For sure.
bicycles aren't cheap.
Oh, I
They're looking for a
sure.
place to lock them up.
For sure. So, you know, places on the square, like you said, make it bike friendly on the outside. Making your hours, I mean, it's not gonna have a huge impact overnight. It's gonna slowly grow, right? It's gonna grow. As you make more connections, it's gonna grow. But outdoor patios, like if the city would allow, even if it's 2-seat with a table, like, you know, if I'm biking by, the windows are tinted, I gotta come over here to see if it's open. I don't know if it's open. Maybe odds are it is, but if I see 2 couples sitting out there having a drink and eating, I'm probably probably more likely to stop than if I need to go inspect, right? So like, being more visible and interactive, I think, is the easiest. I think signage, having some signage. So ride the trails, see if there's a natural place where people might feel like it's the end or it's time to turn around, and put some sort of kiosk there. It's like 1 more mile to whatever.
Hang up a bicycle art,
Art.
you know, hang up a bicycle out on the outside the building or something.
Yeah, we see that. We see that a lot. You can let the bikers know if there's a bike, and sometimes it's a bike rack that looks like a bike, right? Or it's a plant stand or a bench that's made out of a bike. In Polk City, there's Fender's Brewing, and their sign is a bike. Like, it just screams like, we are a bike-friendly business.
People aren't gonna come in if they don't feel welcome.
No.
If they don't feel welcome in their bike gear and being sweaty, they're just not gonna come in.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's why patios, you know, check with the city to see if you can put a couple tables out there. Get tricky with liquor license, blah, 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 but whatever. You can work through it. We've had in our, so you have a farmer's market, right? On what day?
Thursdays.
Thursdays. Yeah, I mean, there'll be people that bike for that. We've had restaurants cater to the bike crowd in conjunction with the farmer's market, where it's like they want, farmer's market was there, wasn't doing much for business until, you know, they changed their hours to coincide with the farmer's market, and people would bike and have drinks and eat, whatever. Ours is on Saturday morning. But
Have you, so speaking of that, have you seen, so I know some communities have considered even like pop-up vendor spaces, so like I had like, I don't know, like a 10 by 10 shed that sits right along the trail here that you could rent out for the weekend as a vendor to do a pop-up space right there. I mean, do you see things like that, or like those types of
absolutely,
ideas?
absolutely. Even pop-up shops on Main Street for the
Yeah.
season, right? Because
Yeah.
the biggest fear is, you get people just in Ankeny and Uptown. It's like, oh, an open ice cream. Like, we need ice cream. People in the community would love it, but what are we gonna do 6 months out of the year when it's not ice cream season, right? So even as a property owner,
There's a season that's not ice cream.
Yeah, it's like,
I know. I go when it's 20 below.
I was like, wait a second, there's ice cream in December and January, so.
Right. But if you're a small business and you're tied into trail traffic, because you may not have the population density to keep it open in January. Be as a landlord, being flexible with leasing, knowing it's hopefully would evolve into something more is key. I mean, just kind of being intentional and thinking creatively about it. But like even that idea is a great idea for different things. Because well, here's a concept for you. In Des Moines Metro, in Cummings, Iowa, they have population, 37. I'm making up numbers. Sorry if anyone's watching online from Cummings. Small town. They had a bar, no restaurants. They have a distillery now. And on Tuesday nights, the taco truck would show up. Thousands of people. It was the taco ride, right? And thousands of people would go from 12 miles out to Cummings and back for tacos. And it was a food truck. I mean, it was actually a bike. The guy, Taco Apocalypse, did it, but something like that to make the destination. Whereas if it's your business, it's whatever night is the bike special, and everyone begins to know it. So if you live in Monroe or you live in Bondurant or wherever,
Like a whiskey ride.
right, exactly. And there's something about that night that's different than most nights. And if you're going to make the trek, you're going to do it. By God, you're going to do it on that Thursday night because there's going to be more people and there's something there that's different. You know.
And I know the other, from the other side of it, as trails have opened up, and this is just sort of looking nationwide once again, but there's a large group that's called Open Coffee, And what they do is it's basically groups of people get together and they pack the stuff to brew coffee in an isolated space along a bike trail. I just mentioned that one because that's the one that I know of, and I've connected into the one that's here in Des Moines. But to me, that's another component of the bike tourism. As you get a trail going, you are going to get groups of people that show up and start creating their own following and a group activity
Bike
that
clubs.
that you sort of need to tap into the social media and watch and see what these groups are doing to make sure that the community is embracing and adapting to support them as they come and go.
Right. Yeah, and there's opportunities. Look at the distance between the Mitchellville and Monroe, and there could be an opportunity for a little pit stop in between if it's far enough. Because if you have a little break in between, like Ankeny to Slater is 12 or 13 miles, and that's the longest stretch without a stop to the Woodward and back.
Yeah.
But in the middle, there's what's called the Oasis, and the Oasis is a picnic table, a shelter, a pit toilet. There's no power, but it's like a destination that psychologically breaks up your trip. It's like I just get to the Oasis and get some water, hang out, fix my bike, whatever, have a drink, you packed them, and then you just got 6 more miles. So there's some psychology. So if it's 16 miles from here to Monroe, there might be a place right in the middle for a little investment, because that will get people to travel a little bit farther if you can break it up in increments. Because
It's not
someone
that
It's only 10.
10?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
under.
not bad. That's not bad. They
By the
must,
time
I
you
read
went- by the time
16
you went
somewhere.
Mitchellville to here is probably close to 10, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty close to that.
They probably every 10 miles coming down.
Yeah.
To your point, you mentioned the Trail of Coming and had a cyclist testimonial in the shop today. She was so proud that they did the ride to Martinsdale, but they found this place called the Chicken in Arilla before you get to Cumming, and that was like the highlight of her bike ride. And she was eager to share that not only to us in the shop, but to other customers that were there. So the word spreads, and if you have some like a quality business, and that and the outskirts bar are right there off the trail, and they wouldn't exist except for that trail.
Oh no, I just had bacon for a long time. They still have the big fiberglass chicken out front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's genius marketing, right? Because who's out for a Saturday and doesn't stop and get their picture taken next to this obnoxious
Yep.
fiberglass chicken? I'm not gonna lie, my Instagram profile picture is me riding that chicken, right? And I don't even post anything. That's just a funny picture I decided to make to my profile. But like gets people talking about it, makes them stop. It's like, yeah, to your point, you're spot on. So
I guess the one question is, since we have a couple of bike individuals in the room, and it's a new trail, so we know going into this that it's a bear trail. What are first suggestions of things like that we need to be considering? So aside from bike racks or whatever, which is a little bit business oriented but somewhat city also. I know there were some comments of the one gentleman that rode the trail of needing to have benches along the trail, fix-it stations, like any things like that comes to mind that.
One thing we have a lot of people talk to us about is they love our trees, because say if it's a hot day, they're shade. If it's a windy day, they can, they're out of the wind. And I think one thing you're gonna find out with the highway right there, you're gonna have a lot of windy days on that. But you go up to Marshalltown, they have it all go nice and flat. There's nothing there, but you don't see nobody ride it. You talk to people, they'll ride early in the morning or late at night. They won't ride it through the middle of the day.
What does that do, leave on your trail surface though, all the trees?
Well, you got space for a little bit, but they gotta maintain it. You gotta blow it off. But I mean, I think that's the biggest reason we have people ride our trails. I mean, your trail 10 times nicer than ours surface wise.
yeah, it's nice.
But I mean, Marshalltown, nobody rides it. You can talk to people and talk to locals, and no, you wait till 4 or 5 o'clock at night before you ever get on it.
Yeah.
And because it's, you know, so windy.
To the point about benches, we have a program where people can donate a bench and put their name on it. And I've seen that. It's on the High Trestle Trail up between the bridge and Woodward too. I think the county might do it, Boone County or whatever county we're in, up there. It might be an easy way to add some, because if you price what the little pad of concrete costs and what a bench costs with a plaque with someone's name, it's not hard to find 6 people in Prairie City that wants to donate $550 to provide a bench with their little family name on it. You know, that's you're not getting a unique artistic bench to my point here, but at least you're getting someplace.
But I guess the bigger question though is like, so you're talking 10 miles between Monroe and Prairie City. I mean, is that 2 benches? Is that 3 benches? Is that a bench every mile? I mean, like, because of we were discussing like the Chautauqua Trail. I mean, the hilly sections have more benches, of course, than once you get to the flatter spaces.
Like probably every 3 miles, I'd say.
Yeah.
There's one, you know.
Yeah.
And someone donated, there's always a name on it.
Yeah.
And then same way with like fix-it stations. I mean, how frequently do you have a
We have
fix-it
one in
station?
every town.
You have one in every town.
Every town, yeah.
But not one in the spaces between towns.
No, this is every town.
I have
Swear
seen
if you
a
had
lot
like
of
an
those that
Oasis.
are dangling cables that people have destroyed when they're not somewhere
We've
that
had
you
pretty
can watch.
we've had pretty good luck. We haven't had any damage. We bought extra parts for them actually. Figured, you know, somebody would steal parts off them. We've never had anybody steal anything off it yet.
But I think having them where people are
Yes,
instead of out in the middle of.
Yeah, we have them inside every town. So there are people who
And
actually
is
see
that
them.
stuff that your friends of the Chautauqua Valley Trail have kind of spearheaded the benches and the,
That we raised money for the concrete and raised money for the
the
pumps.
friends, right?
Yes, the friends, and then, we put up some signs, we paid for some signs, we're doing some more signs. Then every town gets there and sure tell about the community. A lot of people like to stop doing that, and we're, already put our second one up. And, one thing a lot of people talk about is it'd be nice to have restrooms. And, cause you can go quite a ways though, Valeria has no restroom. They are putting one at the Trailhead 88 this year. Polk County's doing that, and we'd like to update the ones in Mingo and also, Ira, because, you know, they're just Okaibos, you know, during the middle of summer, they're not too appealing. And we're trying to raise money for that, but raising money is tough, cause, you know, you can have bike rides, but everyone's having bike rides, fundraisers. You know, years ago, we used to have them raise quite a bit of money. Now, everyone and their dog having them, it's hard to raise money, so you're gonna have to think somehow out of the box to raise money for that, and that's where we're at now. Trying to decide what to do, you know.
Well, we will be signing people up tomorrow for the Friends of the Red Rock Prairie Trail. So, anyone that's interested, just let me know, I'll get your name on the list.
I wish it were gonna be 20-degree cooler tomorrow.
It's gonna be weird.
So I think back to your question about like what are things that need to be thought about on the trail. I guess from my perception, one thing to think about is how far are the people that are coming planning to ride? Because I know like everybody's perception of the length of a ride is really different. Like my family goes on a 30-mile ride, we feel like that's a long ride. I watched like Chris and some of the guys at the bike shop on Strava, and they're running 60 miles, and that's like an everyday ride for them. I have some friends that have posted ride on Instagram, and they're like, I biked 5 miles today, and that was their long ride for them. So yes, it's only 10 miles from here to Monroe, but for some people to go 10 miles out and 10 miles back is way too far. So do you want it to be right, you got little kids, that's really hard. So do you want to be like a family-friendly trail where maybe you do have like an Oasis type thing halfway out, so it's 10 miles out and back to that? Or are you trying to attract the people who are riding 60 miles an hour? Because I think kind of whoever you're targeting, it changes. I think the shorter the ride, the more things you're going to need to implement within the community or along the trail, just to keep people interested in wanting to come back.
One thing we thought about our restaurants, we wanted them in town with the idea maybe the city would do the maintenance on it, because the county, you know, they're not real big on running out there, and the city already has people there. That's one thing we've thought about, but here, you know, that wouldn't be a possibility.
But I mean, like even to his point though, I mean, if you had that Oasis spot or just a pull-off spot somewhere between here and Monroe, you throw a hammock pole on it, and a bench with some sort of a shade component, I mean, I think you're done. You've accomplished that. Oh, I can only ride this far because I have to ride all the way back yet.
You know, you mentioned the bike repair stations. Oftentimes you see those at, you know, places where, different restaurants and places like that. Sometimes they're even private, where it's like, using Goldie's just said, or this place as an example. If you want bicyclists to come to your place, you get the repairs. Or tell the city you want it in front of your place, or buy your own and put it there. Like Fire Trucker in Ankeny has their own. We have one also, but that's a way to get them off the trail.
We saw it was at the Hotel Patti,
Oh, yeah.
Cafe, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll definitely want one somewhere in town.
Yeah, and I think, and that's where I see, like, that's a little bit like this group is, as we start to have these conversations, I mean, not everybody probably needs to add a bike rack.
No.
There's probably some good coordination and cooperation inside the community to say, well, we're gonna buy this many bike racks, and everyone that wants to pitch in, and we're gonna put them here, here, and here. So it's a little intentional design, and not to say that, well, like you said, if I want to put up a couple of tables and chairs and like a 2-bike bike rack, or like a smaller couple of bikes or 4-bike bike rack here, that would cater to the business specifically, but it's not intending to handle like a 20-bike park or whatever.
Right. I had mentioned the patio. Patios are key. I've seen in Indianola, business just like this, sidewalk's not wide enough for a patio. They got the city to give 3 parking stalls. They built a deck on those 3 parking stalls, and with a railing, so you have your defined liquor area, and then you have patio for the season, which would be wildly popular.
City of Knoxville, if you go over to Knoxville, they have one like that, but then they also have a shipping container that they converted. So in theory, it could be moved even.
Yeah, and then you know they move in the winter for
Get
snow
up and pick it up and
seasonal.
move it.
The
But yeah,
shipping containers as covered patio and the.
Yep, it's basically just got cutouts for awnings.
Huh.
So awnings out into the street and on the ends,
Huh.
and it's completely open on the sidewalk side.
Yeah,
So you just go in, there's tables and stuff set inside of it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just additional seating that's off the sidewalk.
yeah, yeah. Patios just suck people in. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was at, I don't know, long story short, but I went to there were 2 different breweries in Ankeny on an 85-degree day, and it was on my route. I stopped at the first one, which did not have a patio, and I was the only person there, okay? And then less than a mile away, so 15 minutes after I left a vacant place, I went to another brewery with a patio, and there were 75 people at least on the patio. Because no one wants, if you're out biking, you're out to enjoy a beautiful day, the last thing you want to do is go inside. So. Any other questions or thoughts? Now the fun begins, right? You get kind of ribbon tomorrow?
Yeah, so don't forget ribbon cutting tomorrow, 5 p.m. at the Bison Sculpture, and 6 o'clock in Monroe at the Red Rock Park. So for those that don't know, that's that little like model or the little cabin house that sits just off of where the old 163 sort of curved through. Old 163 Washington?
Washington's north.
Goes this way.
You can't miss it.
It's
Take the first Monroe exit, you cannot miss it.
yeah, I imagine there'll be lots of people
If
there.
you're riding, go right.
If you're on the trail, you about got to go.
Yeah,
through it.
so they are offering, thanks to Light and State Bank, so they are giving away bicycle helmets to the first 25 kids at each location, and they're raffling a new kids bike off at each location.
Jasper County donated all the helmets.
bought the two bikes?
a bike and the county bought a bike.
Oh, okay.
One of their county things,
Yeah.
grant money, I don't know.
So there'll be lots of things for kids and for families, and once you get to Monroe, they are doing hot dogs and Jersey Freeze ice cream for everyone that
And you can
makes
get
it all the
free
way.
Goldie's cone at the ribbon cutting
Yes.
too.
Here. So definitely come out and support that.
Have beer. Yeah, right, have a beer, ice cream. You can have ice cream, then a beer,
Oh,
or a beer, ice cream, and roll
Lucasailing ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully it was valuable for everyone's evening, so you got free pizza out of the deal,
Yeah, exactly.
so. Alright.
And yeah, please help yourselves to whatever's left up there.
But I prefer to eat their free ice cream.
You guys know.
It's nice.
Put yourself on the mic.
Shop owner that doesn't carry anything with them.
Right here.
Well,